Welcome to FPL Selection. Today, let's take a look at how the team is shaping up for Game Week 16, but first, a quick look at how we got on in Game Week 15. So a total score of 55 points, saw a small drop in rank, just inside the top 2,000. No big disaster there. There was only a small difference between where we were last week and now, so no panic at all. 2 transfers coming into this week, sort of forced transfers really, slightly regrettable as well. After hearing the postponement of the Liverpool-Everton game, I realised I was going to be short on defence, especially if Gabriel was going to be out, which obviously at the time I wasn't sure, there was no news. So I decided to bring in an extra defender, but in order to do so, the only position I was willing to drop up some budget was Mbeumo. And I really wanted to keep him for the next few weeks, and my plan was to do nothing. But once I heard that postponement, I then started overthinking a little bit. Got rid of Mbeumo, brought in Gordon, mainly for his 2 good fixtures in the following weeks, but decided I'd get him in for 3 weeks. And that allowed me to bring in Lewis Dunk, who I've been waiting for a price drop for many weeks and never got it. He was ever so close for many days, but ended up with obviously the budget saved by bringing in Gordon. I was able to get Dunk in at 4.4, so still a good price for him. But obviously losing Mbeumo in his 13 pointer was very frustrating, and it was purely after just seeing that postponement. It just made me change my plans, but there you go, I've got Gordon in now and he's going to stay for 3 weeks. Only the 2 players return this week. Bruno Fernandes, 9 points. Got the goal and his 2 bonus. He's always very good for bonus whenever he does get a return. But surprisingly got taken off on 75 minutes. Now I watched the game and Bruno is always the one that's going to make something happen for United. And we just looked like we had no ideas after we went off the pitch. Really not sure why he was taken off. We obviously had a big gap between that game and the Thursday night Europa. So I'm really not sure. Maybe he's carrying an injury that we don't know about, but yeah, it was a strange choice there. Obviously not a great performance from United, but Bruno still continues to pick up the points. Then the other return was Cole Palmer, and yeah, really happy with the return there, seeing as I did back him for captaincy before the postponement of the Liverpool game and Salah, which obviously made it very frustrating to see Palmer score really well. And then obviously most people, when they saw the Liverpool news, would have probably switched from Salah to Palmer captain. So I really did think Salah wasn't going to score that high. Maybe he would have done, but it would have been nice to have seen how that played out, as I felt like that was a fairly reasonable risk to take and could have seen a nice bit of rank gain from that. But that's okay, we got it right, so we can move on to next week. So, looking ahead to Game Week 16, I've got 2 free transfers and 0.4 million in the bank. I've got 1 transfer I'm fairly certain on this week, which we'll come to shortly. But I just wanted to quickly discuss some defensive options I've got my eye on for the minute. So, I mentioned it last week, but I am considering at some point switching Raya out for Saliba and have Saliba as my second Arsenal defender. Just seeing those Arsenal set pieces again at the weekend, it just makes me think that it's almost like a wasted spot having Raya there, because the upside's there with Saliba. If I've got him and Gabriel and they're both fit, you're going to get most of the sort of set piece returns hopefully between the 2 of them. Obviously I've already got Saka there with the corners. It's not really obviously a priority move, but I just think that, you know, if they miss out on the clean sheet, you're paying 5.6 now for Raya. It just seems like if I can just find that extra 0.6 for Saliba, just having that extra threat with the goals, yeah, I think it might be worth it. So I'm just going to monitor that one and see if I get a chance to build up a few transfers. I might look at that in a few weeks' time. Anderson from Fulham, I've got my eye on him at the moment. He dropped down to 4.2 last week, and he hasn't got the best fixtures in the next few, but once he is back from injury, which I believe he's due back in the next couple of games, he could be a really nice first bench option. just there as a safety net in case somebody does get injured. I don't have time to make any changes. It could be perfect just to slot in. Fulham have been quite decent this season defensively, so yeah, I think it makes sense at 4.2. Then Lenny Yoro at Man United. He's only 4.3. Now, he got his first start against Forest last weekend. He did only play just over the hour. That's following up after half an hour against Arsenal. So, yeah, I think if he can solidify his place in the United team, got some good fixtures coming up after the Manchester derby. So I'm going to keep an eye on him. And again, I think it's just the price there. And I think if United can improve defensively, which they've got to improve in some way, because yeah, it can't get much worse really, and yeah, he could be a nice little pickup there. But the planned transfer for this week is going to be Watkins out for Isak. Now, I had said before that Watkins was the kind of guy that was going to keep for most of the season, 38 game weeks. Now, that certainly was true last season, but I think seeing him now with his minutes recently, coming off early in games, and then he didn't even start the Southampton game, even after an early sub in the midweek before. You've got John Duran there scoring worldies every week and looking really good. I just can't see how Watkins is going to start every single game. He's going to get rotated and rested. He's also picked up a knock, apparently, during the Champions League game in midweek. Came off at half time. I think that's just a little extra push for me, just to take the risk now for Isak for the next couple. He's got Leicester at home, Ipswich away. He's always injury prone, and that does worry me about Isak, but he's been fit recently. He's scored some great goals. He's looking really sharp. I've already got Anthony Gordon, so I think going for the double Newcastle attack against two promoted teams that seem to leak plenty of goals, it just seems like a risk worth taking there to go in on those two games and then reassess afterwards where we are. I might even end up getting Watkins back if he's still starting and still looking decent, but yeah, I just think those minutes and that knock in midweeks just forced my hand here, and I think it makes sense to take a chance on the Newcastle attack there. So moving on to the team for this week and the defence. So double Arsenal defence as usual with Ryan Gabriel, Everton at home. Now, I really am expecting a clean sheet here. Everton just don't seem to score that many goals, and this is the kind of game you can just see a comfortable Arsenal win, 1 or 2-0. The only thing that concerns me is Gabriel's potential injury. He missed the game again in the Champions League midweek. Hasn't been seen now for a few games. There was some quote going around from Arteta where he mentioned a muscular injury. So again, there's not been much news on that. We might get an early leak, seeing as it's the first game on Saturday. So maybe there'll be some people out looking around the hotels with the Arsenal team there. So we might get something, but I think even if there's nothing definitive, I'll probably just keep him there and just roll again for the next week and yeah, see how that goes. But of course, I'd like to have the double Arsenal defence this week, but yeah, I just don't see it being worth switching to Saliba or Timber, because I think Gabriel is the best set piece threat. So yeah, I can wait another week for that, I think. Next up, we've got Hall, Leicester at home. He's been really disappointing actually. No returns in the 5 games since that Arsenal clean sheet in game week 10. They can't keep a clean sheet against Leicester or Ipswich in the next 2. He's definitely going to be on the chopping block there, I think. He is nice and cheap, so I wouldn't mind benching him if I can bring in another decent option for my bench. But yeah, I'm really expecting at least 1 clean sheet out of the next 2 for Newcastle, and hopefully we can see Hall be a bit more attacking as well, rather than sort of sliding into centre midfield as he seems to be doing quite a bit at the moment. Then on to Lewis Dunk at Palace at home. They're usually quite tight games with Palace and Brighton. Obviously with the new managers now, maybe that could change. We'll have to see. I think Brighton will want to make a point this week after they threw away the clean sheet against Leicester, and they ended up drawing that game in the last 5 minutes, conceding 2. I was watching the game, and then I decided to switch over when Brighton scored the second, thinking it was over. I saw the Arsenal game was 1-1, and yeah, flicked over and yeah, lost the 2 goals there. So yeah, I'm not overly hopeful for a clean sheet in this one, but yeah, I just feel like Brighton need to make a point here and recover after dropping those points against Leicester. So fingers crossed Dunk is now in the first 11 after his injury problems. So yeah, we'll have to see with that as well. But yeah, I'm quietly confident he should be in there now. And yeah, hopefully we can get something from him. So let's move on to the midfield. Salah is at home to Fulham. He got another goal in the Champions League midweek, and he did get a week's rest because of the Everton postponement. So he's had a decent rest there from Tuesday to Tuesday. Played the Champions League game, got his goal. I think Fulham are definitely a much better team this season. You've seen the results in the last 3 with the draws against Spurs and Arsenal and getting the win there against Brighton. So I don't think this is going to be super comfortable for Liverpool. I still think at Anfield, they're probably going to win. It just won't be a crazy score or anything. I expect Fulham to, limit them to 1 or 2 goals. And of course, Salah's probably going to be involved. But yeah, I just think Fulham are a tricky team this season, and you can't underestimate them. So yeah, let's see how much Salah can score this week. But probably be my vice captain at the moment is the way I'm looking at that. But we'll talk about that more in a moment. Saka, Everton at home. Had a nice brace in midweek and got the player of the week in the Champions League. So again, just that level of consistency, just getting something every week, turning up every week. Even when he's got small injuries, he still plays most of the games. And he was unlucky in the Fulham game with his goal, ever so slightly disallowed for offside. Yeah, he's a quality player, and I'll say it again, 38 game weeks, he's going to be there unless he gets a bad injury. So he's up against Mikalenko on his side as well, so I'm definitely expecting something. So next up, Bruno Fernandes. He's away to City this week. He does like to come up big in the more important games, but City away, both teams really not in good form at the moment. Really difficult to know what to expect, but with both teams sort of not in form, and the fact that United are still definitely under transition here with Amorim still trying to learn the patterns of play and the positions that he wants them to be in, it's just very messy at the moment, and I can see United giving the ball away, City taking advantage with the press, and yeah, it'd be a good game for them anyway to build their confidence and get a good result. So I'm not overly hopeful here for United, but if anyone's going to get anything for them, it's always going to be Fernandes. He's been ticking along nicely since I brought him in, so yeah, he's not going anywhere for me, and I'll take anything from this game really, to be honest, because as a United fan, I'm really not very hopeful. Moving on to Gordon, he's got Leicester at home. Now, I brought him in mainly because of these next 2 fixtures, Leicester home and Ipswich away. Really disappointed to lose out on Bumo last week. It was purely, my mind got changed with the Liverpool-Everton game getting postponed, and yeah, it was obviously a bad move for the first week, so I'm hoping Gordon can repay that back with the next 2. He's not set the world on fire this season, Gordon, quite the same way he did last year. I mean, last year I can remember every week he was scoring something, and I kept telling myself I needed to get him in, and I didn't. So I want to try and get in on him early for a good run this season. He's obviously a very talented player, and I think he'll be in the England team going forwards for sure. So I think this would be a good couple of games for the Newcastle attack to start clicking properly, and yeah, Gordon's one of the 2 main men there with his sack, so yeah, I can see especially the way that Leicester are very leaky. Even though they've had 2 good results under Van Nistelrooy, they've conceded so many shots. West Ham should have had plenty more, Brighton should have had plenty more, so yeah, I think if Newcastle can click, especially at home, then Gordon's got a good chance of a few returns here. And finally there, Cole Palmer, Brentford at home. Obviously brilliant, as I mentioned earlier, against Spurs. He's just looking really sharp now. He's on top of his game again. Brentford seem to be very leaky, and certainly their better performances have been at home this season, so you can see Brentford giving up the chances. Palmer's the main man for Chelsea. They've looked so good going forward this season so far, and yeah, he's always going to be involved in everything. Every time you see a Chelsea goal, you're just expecting to see Palmer's name, goal or assist. So I think I'm probably going to captain Palmer again this week as well. I just think it's very close with Salah again this week. Both teams at home as well, but I just think Brentford at home is a slightly better fixture than Fulham at home in terms of opponent. So I'm just leaning towards Palmer again. And I think, yeah, I'm just going to keep backing him, and that's going to be the best way to do this. Is just, I'm going to get most weeks, I'm going to get it right. I'm hoping with the quality of fixtures they've got coming up. So onto the forwards now. And as I mentioned earlier, I think barring any injury scares, I'm going to be taking Watkins out for Isak. I think, as I mentioned earlier with Gordon, Newcastle got 2 perfect fixtures here. 2 newly promoted teams, Leicester at home, Ipswich away. Isak's looked really sharp the last few weeks, scored some great goals. So I think it's just a no-brainer really to have a pop on those 2 fixtures, get the double Newcastle attack. Watkins' minutes have been very dicey the last few weeks. Like I said earlier, he didn't start the Southampton game after an early sub the midweek before, so yeah, once I saw that he picked up a knock and came off at half time in the Champions League midweek, yeah, it just forced me into it. I think it makes sense. So I don't think Watkins is going to get nothing against Forest. I think there's a good chance he might start, but yeah, just that little bit of doubt has made me think I'm just going to bring in Isak, and then I can reassess after a couple of weeks and take it from there really. May even end up getting Watkins back, as I mentioned earlier. I do like him as a long-term hold if he can hold down his place. Might have just been the heavy load of games, and obviously with the Champions League, maybe they're just trying to save him, but yeah, we'll see how we look after the next 2 game weeks. And Pedro is home to Palace. I'm hoping he should be up to fitness now. Had a good run of games since he's come back from the injury, and he's had a good week off now to recover for this one. He did miss a great chance last time against Leicester, and he could have had an assist in that game too. There was a chance for Ferguson where he laid it off for him, and he was just expecting him to bury it, but he ended up passing off to Matoma and he skied it. So yeah, on another day it could have been another haul for Pedro, and no one would have been talking about getting rid of him, and he'd be rising in price yet again. So for a player that only cost me 5.4 when I brought him in, he's still under 6 million. I just think he's the kind of player you just hold for many weeks. He's a quality player. He's going to definitely leave Brighton at some point for a big fee. You can see it. One of the big teams going for him. Just got a little bit of everything. Penalty taker as well. So yeah, that value, he's going to sit there and return every couple of weeks. Yeah, no problem for me. I just think perfect at home game. Yeah, he's going to be keen to make up for that miss last week and losing the points there against Leicester. So as mentioned earlier, I'm going to captain Cole Palmer. Salah will be the vice captain. I've got Greaves and Van der Berg there on the bench just to cover if Gabriel does end up missing out again. Greaves is a bit of a mystery at the moment. He came back in and he was taken out again, and by all accounts Burgess had a really good game, and it seems that Dara O'Shea's also fixed in the team, so with McKenna not liking having the extra centre backs on the bench, yeah, it's hard to know with Greaves. So if he continues to be a problem, he'll probably be the one that will come out when I find a nice budget defender to come in for first bench. But yeah, I'm hoping at least one of those two anyway will be there just to cover for Gabriel. And yeah, we'll look to strengthen that position in a couple of weeks. So that's it for this one. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.